Yeah. Why you fill up you gut? It's a deadly sin called glut. Take this advice from the Deep Dive Podcast Show. Trust me. You too yummy, yummy. Me a big no top, eat like a pig. Yummy, yummy. A time you eat healthy. You too yummy, yummy. Me a big no top, eat like a pig. Yummy, yummy. A time you eat healthy. S-N-A-P, that spells snap. Ban the junk food and save a heart attack. You're too fat a time, you go on diet. Quit try some low fat yogurt. You're too fat a time, you go on diet. Quit try some low fat yogurt.
All right, so we've got a huge stack of research here all about SNAP benefits.
Oh, yeah.
And it seems like you're really interested in this whole debate about restricting junk food purchases.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic.
It is lots to consider, obviously, so let's just dive right in.
Sounds good.
So just so we're all on the same page, SNAP stands for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
Right.
Used to be called food stamps. Helps low-income families buy groceries.
Exactly.
And your research basically boils down to this question. Should there be limits on what people can buy with their SNAP benefits? Like specifically, should we be restricting things like chips and soda, candy?
Yeah, all that stuff we usually lump together as junk food.
Exactly. And, you know, one of the things that really jumped out at me from all this research is how much diet-related illness is on the rise.
Oh.
And the costs are just astronomical.
That's a huge problem.
Especially among low-income folks.
Yeah.
We're talking heart disease, type 2 diabetes, some types of cancer. It's all connected to what we eat.
Right. And one study from the Harvard School of Public Health estimated that those diet-related illnesses cost the U.S. healthcare system over $1.7 trillion annually.
Wow.
So it's a massive burden on taxpayers, too.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a clear sign that something needs to change.
Right. So it makes you think about the whole purpose of SNAP. It's supposed to be about nutrition, right?
Yeah.
So are we really hitting that target if we're funding purchases that are actually contributing to these health problems?
It's a tough question, yeah.
It is. And to even answer it, we need to define what we even mean by junk food.
Right.
And your research points to this definition that focuses on highly processed snacks, sugary drinks, and foods with very little nutritional value.
Yeah, all that stuff that's engineered to taste amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But doesn't really give you anything you need.
Yeah, it's like the difference between eating for pleasure versus eating for nourishment.
Exactly.
And the research is clear. A diet loaded with this kind of processed food significantly increases the risk of chronic diseases.
It does.
On the other hand, if you're eating lots of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, that seems to have a protective effect.
It does.
It leads to better health outcomes, lower healthcare costs over time.
Exactly. There was a study published in the Journal of the American Medical Association, actually, and they found that people who ate a Mediterranean-style diet,
oh, interesting,
rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, had a 30% lower risk of developing heart disease.
30%? That's huge.
It is.
So knowing all that, knowing that healthy food leads to better health, lower healthcare costs in the long run, is there an argument to be made that we should be encouraging people to use SNAP dollars for healthier options?
I mean, that's where we get into the really heated part of this debate, because now we're bumping up against this question of individual freedom.
Right.
And, you know, what role does the government play in public health?
Right. It's that classic tug of war.
Exactly.
You know, personal choice versus the good of the whole society.
And some people will say, hey, restricting what people can buy with SNAP is overreaching.
Yeah.
You know, it infringes on individual choice.
Right. Everyone should be free to choose what they eat. That's the argument.
Right. But on the other hand, people who support those restrictions will say, wait, SNAP isn't just about handing out cash.
Yeah.
It's a program with specific goals.
It's targeted.
Right. And if the goal is to promote nutrition and well-being, then it makes sense that the program should try to steer people toward choices that help them achieve those goals.
I see what you mean.
It's like
if someone wants to buy a soda or a bag of chips with their own money, fine, that's their choice.
Right, exactly.
But when it comes to taxpayer-funded programs, should there be some level of accountability to make sure those funds are being used to support both individual and public health?
That's the crux of it.
Yeah.
And this question has people on both sides fired up. for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's a debate that goes beyond just like the philosophical stuff, right?
Right.
Because there are these real practical concerns about how restricting junk food and SNAP would actually work.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, critics worry it could really stigmatize SNAP recipients or just be a logistical nightmare for everyone involved.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Like, it's easy to say, let's restrict junk food.
Right.
But then how do you actually make that happen?
Right. And I think that's where looking at what other programs are already doing can be really helpful.
Okay. Yeah.
And, you know, your research actually had some really cool examples.
Oh, yeah.
Both here in the U.S. and in other countries.
I always love a good real-world example.
Me too.
So what have other programs tried, and what can we learn from them?
Well, so like Maine,
Okay.
they've got this pilot program
Uh-huh.
where SNAP recipients get bonus dollars specifically for buying fruits and vegetables.
Interesting. So instead of just restricting the bad stuff,
Yeah.
they're actually incentivizing the good stuff.
Exactly. And the early results are really promising.
That's great.
People are actually buying more produce.
Awesome. So it's a win-win, right?
Yeah.
People can stretch their SNAP dollars further, and they're eating healthier.
Exactly.
Are there other states doing similar things?
Yeah, Minnesota's got a pilot program too,
Okay.
but they're restricting sugary drinks.
Oh, interesting. So no soda.
Well, not with SNAP benefits.
Okay, so they're making it a little harder to buy.
Right. And it's definitely been controversial.
I bet.
Some people are like, great, less soda means less obesity, less diabetes.
Uh-huh.
But others are saying it's government overreach, you know, limiting people's freedom.
Right back to that tension we were talking about.
Exactly.
So are there any like big lessons learned from these state level experiments?
Well, I think the big one is that they're giving us valuable data.
Okay.
So we can actually see what works and what doesn't in the real world.
It's like a testing ground.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned other countries have actually gone ahead and implemented these kinds of programs on a larger scale.
They have.
Yeah, some really interesting stuff happening in Europe.
Okay, like where?
So the UK has this program called Healthy Start.
Okay.
And it gives low-income families vouchers that they can use to buy fruits, vegetables, and milk.
So kind of like the main program, but with vouchers instead of bonus dollars.
Yeah, pretty similar, and it's been really effective.
Oh, that's good to hear.
People are definitely eating more of those healthy foods.
Nice. So these targeted incentives seem like a pretty good strategy.
Yeah, they're showing a lot of promise.
What other international examples stand out?
Well, France took a different approach.
Oh.
They actually implemented a tax on sugary drinks,
Oh, wow.
but then they used the money from that tax to fund health initiatives.
Interesting. So they're discouraging the unhealthy drinks and then reinvesting the money back into health programs.
Exactly, a sin tax with a positive twist, right?
I like it. And it's actually working.
Yeah, studies show people are drinking less soda, and the money is going to good use.
So we've seen what's happening here in the U.S. on a smaller scale. And we've got these really interesting examples from other countries.
Right.
But if we were to actually think about implementing something like this nationwide, what are the big things we need to keep in mind? Like, what are the potential pitfalls?
Well, that's a really good question. And I think one of the most important things is to make sure that any restrictions are really carefully thought out
Yeah.
to avoid unintended consequences.
Like, what kind of unintended consequences?
Well, for instance, how we define junk food is really important.
Okay.
That definition needs to be clear based on evidence and not too broad.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because we don't want to accidentally restrict foods that are culturally important
Right.
or that actually provide essential nutrients.
Okay. So it's all about finding that balance.
Yeah, promoting healthy choices, but respecting people's individual needs and cultures.
Okay. What else do we need to think about?
Well, education and outreach are super important too.
Okay.
If we're going to restrict certain foods,
Uh-huh.
we need to make sure SNAP recipients understand why.
Yeah.
They need to know what foods are covered and have access to resources that can help them make healthier choices.
So it's not just about saying no. It's about giving people the information and support they need.
Exactly. And we can't forget about food deserts.
Right.
Restricting junk food doesn't really help if people don't have access to affordable, healthy options in their communities.
It's a bigger issue than just individual choices, right?
It is, absolutely. We need to address the supply side of things, too.
Okay, so it's a multifaceted problem.
It is.
But it sounds like there are solutions out there.
Yeah, I think so.
It's not hopeless.
No, definitely not. And I think it's important to remember that this isn't about judging people or trying to control what they eat.
Right.
It's about creating a system that makes healthy eating easier and more accessible for everyone.
Absolutely. And your research actually mentioned this other interesting concept.
Oh, yeah.
Ultra-processed foods.
Can
Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, so ultra-processed foods are basically foods that have gone through a ton of industrial processing.
Okay.
They often have ingredients you wouldn't normally find in your kitchen.
Like what?
Artificial flavors, colors, preservatives, all sorts of additives.
So the stuff that comes in a box or a bag with a long list of ingredients you can't even pronounce.
Exactly. And what's worrying is that research is starting to show that these ultra-processed foods might be really bad for our health.
Really? Like worse than regular processed foods?
Potentially, yeah.
Okay. So what makes them so different?
Well, for one thing, they're designed to be super palatable.
Oh, yeah.
Like they trigger our reward centers and make us want to eat more and more.
So it's not just that they taste good. It's like they're engineered to make us crave them.
Exactly. And some experts think they might even be addictive.
Addictive. Like a drug.
It's a serious claim, I know.
It is.
But some studies are showing that the way these foods affect our brains, it's similar to what happens with drug addiction.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing.
So it's not just about willpower then.
Right. There might be actual biological factors at play.
That's wild. And it makes this whole SNAP debate even more complicated, right?
It is.
Because now we have to consider the food industry's role in all this, the responsibility of policymakers, the need for better education about all of this.
Right. It's a lot to think about.
This is all so fascinating, but honestly, I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
Yeah, we have.
So where do we go from here? What does the future hold for all of this?
Well, that's a perfect segue to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we've spent all this time talking about SNFP benefits. And the whole debate about restricting junk food.
Yeah.
We've looked at, the pros and cons, some real world examples, even touched on that whole ultra processed food thing.
It's a lot.
It is. So where do we go from here?
Well, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, what does the future hold for SNFP? How do we approach nutrition assistance going forward?
I don't think there's like one clear answer.
Right.
There are a few different paths we could see things going.
Like what? What are some of those potential pathways?
Well, one possibility is that we just keep going with these gradual changes.
Okay.
More states could experiment with different programs, gather data, see what works.
Yeah, like a slow and steady approach.
Exactly. Kind of a patchwork of policies across the country.
Okay. Right. It sounds like a safe way to go.
Yeah.
Minimize risk, learn as we go.
Right.
But is it enough?
That's a good question.
I mean, given how serious these public health challenges are.
Yeah, you're right.
Like, we need to do something, right?
Yeah. And that brings us to another possibility.
Okay.
Which is a more like nationwide push for reform.
Oh, wow. So like federal guidelines for SNFP?
Exactly. Kind of like what WIC has.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. That would be a big change.
It would, for sure. It would create a consistent standard across the whole country.
Right.
Which could be good for equity, making sure everyone has access to healthy food.
Right.
But it would also take a lot of political will to get that done.
I bet.
And, there's going to be pushback from people who are really focused on individual freedom.
Yeah, that seems to be the sticking point, doesn't it?
It does.
That balance between freedom and, the government stepping in.
Right, exactly.
But you mentioned another path.
I did.
One that you seem kind of excited about.
I am excited about it.
So tell me, what is that path?
Well, this one is all about empowerment.
Okay.
It's about moving beyond just giving people money and actually giving them the knowledge and the skills they need to make healthy choices.
So like nutrition education.
Exactly. Cooking classes, maybe.
Right.
Making sure healthy food is available in every community.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
It's about giving people the tools they need.
It's about empowering people.
Exactly. And it's not just about individuals either. It's about investing in community gardens, supporting farmers markets, working with stores to get fresh produce into those areas that don't have it.
The food deserts we were talking about.
Exactly.
I love this idea.
It's about creating a food environment where the healthy choice is the easy choice.
Yeah, that's brilliant. But it sounds like a pretty huge undertaking.
It is.
Like, how do we even start to make that happen?
Well, I think it starts with a shift in our mindset.
Okay.
We need to move away from this idea that health is just an individual responsibility.
Right.
And start thinking about it as a collective one.
So we're all in this together.
We are.
We all have a role to play.
Exactly. It's about creating a food system that works for everyone.
That promotes well-being for everyone.
Exactly.
So how can our listeners be a part of this?
Well, there are a lot of things you can do.
Like what? Give us some ideas.
You can support organizations working on these issues in your community.
Okay.
You can speak up and advocate for better policies. You can volunteer at a food bank or a community garden.
Right.
You can even just start by making small changes in your own life.
And talking about it with other people.
Exactly. It all makes a difference.
So even small actions can have a ripple effect.
They really can.
Wow. This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
It has been.
We've learned so much about SNMAP benefits and this whole junk food debate.
It's a complex issue.
It really is. And there's no easy answer.
Definitely not.
But hopefully we've given our listeners some food for thought,
I hope so.
some new ideas to chew on.
And maybe inspired them to get involved.
Because at the end of the day,
Yeah,
we all have a responsibility to create a healthier, more equitable food system.
absolutely.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of SNAP benefits and nutrition assistance.
It's been a pleasure.
We encourage you to keep learning, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep the conversation going,
Keep asking questions.
because every bite counts.
It does.
Until next time, stay curious.
Why you fill up your gut? It's a deadly sin called glut. Take this advice from the Deep Dive Podcast Show. Trust me, you too yummy, yummy. Me a big and no top, eat like a pig. Yummy, yummy, a time you eat healthy. You too yummy, yummy. Me a big and no top, eat like a pig. Yummy, yummy, a time you eat healthy. SNAP, that spells snap. On the junk food and save a heart attack. Yo, too fat a time, yo, go on diet. Why try some low-fat yogurt? You're too fat a time, yo, go on diet. Why try some low-fat yogurt?